Hey everybody, welcome back, welcome back. We getting back into our book club, the Trilateral Commission. So much been going on. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is really going down. If y'all don't believe in God, shoot, you better find something to believe in. So let's get off into it. We finishing up chapter 1. I only had one page. I wish I would have known that. And then we get into chapter 2. The founding of the Trilateral Commission. I think y'all gonna find that to be real, real good. So this is the end of chapter 1. It's only one page. We have emphasized that trilateralism is the political expression of one section of finance capital, a section made up of banks and corporations with investments, commitments, sales, and production on an international scale. Clearly, there's another section of finance capital which does not support the policies for which trilateralism stands. This section is made up primarily industrial corporations whose operations are confined to one nation, whose export sales and foreign production facilities are insignificant. And it is to this split in finance capital that many of the trilateralism's most serious problems can be traced. For a major component of trilateralism is the attempt to bribe, threaten, and cajole the people of the advanced capitalist countries into supporting the internationalization of capital. North Americans, West Germans, and Japanese all have to be convinced that their respective countries are friendly partners in a peace-loving alliance, that Japanese TV sets and German steel sold in the U.S. represent a boon to U.S. consumers, that international economic interdependence is better than nationalism. It is not difficult to achieve this consensus in times of prosperity and economic expansion. Incomes were rising, the lower prices of foreign-made goods were welcome, and the unemployment foreign competition might cause was only a distant threat. But as the economy began to collapse in the early 70s, for many people, the problems of capitalism, internationalism came to outweigh its advantages. Domestic manufacturers were unable to sell their products, looked to eliminate competitors. And when the crunch came and factories began to close, domestic industrialists were quick to blame unemployment on low-priced foreign competitors. Indeed, the recession of the 1970s had unleashed significant protectionism forces in every advanced capitalist country. And although Nixon's early protectionism may have been beaten down, today Jimmy Carter and like-minded national leaders around the world are finding it impossible to ignore the political strength of protectionism. So far, the trilateralists have been able to keep protectionism and economic nationalism from destroying their carefully woven fabric, but they have not been able to hold off recessionary economic forces, and recession has breeded tensions between Western Europe, Japan, and the United States. And we right back in that same mess right now. As the recession deepens, these tensions may erupt into trade wars 1980-2025. Restrictions on capital flows, and a general collapse of international money markets. Similar tensions and similar actions harmful to transnational interests may also be heightened and quicken the efforts of crisis on Africa, Latin America, and Asia. A house of cards, even if well planned, carefully constructed, is still just a house of cards. The Trilateral Commission's program for the international economy is careful and thoughtful. Its plans have the backing of the world's most powerful bankers, the Illuminati, industrialists, and politicians. Yet the triumph of trilateralism, truly transnational imperialist relations, is possible only if in a period of general expansion. As the economy moves toward a general collapse. 1980-2025. Ain't shit changed but the people. The game has not changed, just the people and the time. The plans for a transnational world economy will become less and less feasible. The Trilateral house of cards will fall. Not because it's poorly built, but because its architects assume they're possible, that capitalism will forever expand. Damn! That is the truth. That was good. Okay, now we go on to chapter 2, the founding of it. Now, this guy who we about to talk about, the Trilateral Commission, was founded in 1970 by Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was one of the 3 that groomed Obama to become president. He's now a Harvard professor. George Soros backed Obama, and Henry Kissinger. Check out my video on George Soros. Anyway, Brzezinski wrote Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era, a forceful rationale for trilateralism. He called for the formation of a community of developed nations composed of the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. These are the most vital regions of the globe because they are a forefront of scientific and technological innovation and most advanced in the planetary consensus. A technocrat society, according to Brzezinski, is a society that is shaped culturally, psychologically, socially, and economically by the impact of technology and electronics, particularly in the area of computers and communication. From the start, Brzezinski stressed the important role of Japan. Japan is a world power, and in the world of electronic and supersonic communications, it is a psychological and political error to think of it as primarily an Asian country, an Asian nation. Japan needs an outlet commencement with its own advanced development. Not only that, places it in a position of giants among pygmies, and that excludes its de facto from the councils of the real world powers. Brzezinski outlined the broad and overlapping phases in the formation of the community of nations. The first would involve the forging of community links among the United States, Western Europe, and Japan, as well as with other more advanced countries, Australia, Israel, Mexico. The second phase would include the extension of links to more advanced communist countries, perhaps Yugoslavia and Romania. The idea being that the Soviet Union would join up with Western advanced nations or be beaten at the game of ideologically, technological, and economic competition for the Third World and Eastern Europe. The emerging community of developed nations will require some institutional expression. The seeds of the Trilateral Commission, as well as regular Western Economic Summit meetings, are found in Brzezinski's proposal for a high-level consultative council for global competition, regularly bringing together the heads of governments of the developed world to discuss their common political security, educational, scientific, and economic technological problems, as well as to deal from that perspective with their moral obligations toward the developing nations. Some permanent supporting machinery could provide continuity to these constellations. Such a council would be more effective in developing common programs than in the United Nations, whose efficiency is unavoidably limited by the Cold War and by the North-South divisions. Brzezinski further aired his views on trilateralism in the context of contemporary politics in 2 articles. The first in foreign policy, summer 1971, half past Nixon. And the second, U.S. foreign policy, the search for focus, appeared in Foreign Affairs, July 9th. And Foreign Affairs is a Trilateral magazine. Yeah, okay. The emerging community of developed nations will require some institutional expressions. Oh, I just read that. Never mind. Let me get down here. Brzezinski emphasizes that traditional sovereignty of nation states is becoming increasingly unglued as transnational forces such as multinational corporations, banks, and international organizations play a larger and larger role in shaping political politics and the consciousness of jet age transnational elite. 1971. Relations between North America, Western Europe, and Japan were not solidifying into community. They were rapidly deteriorating. A dangerous low point was reached in August at the time of Nixon shocks to the international economic political system. In December, Brzezinski, then a Columbia University professor, organized the Tribit Studies under auspices of the Brookings Institution, located in Washington, D.C., commonly known as the think tank for democratic administrations. Brookings scholars worked together with their counterparts from the Japanese Economic Research Center and the European Community Institute of University Studies on Common Problems. It was partly the impressive results of the tripartite studies which convinced David Rockefeller, Illuminati, see how they all coincide? It's many subsets to the New World Order that's coming, that's here, which convinced David Rockefeller that trilateralism was a necessary and desirable process. Rockefeller was getting worried about the deteriorating relations between U.S., Europe, and Japan and initiated the process which led to the formation of the Trilateral Commission, recalls George Franklin, who helped organize the commission. Winter, spring 1972. In the winter, Rockefeller proposed the creation of what he was then calling an International Commission for Peace and Prosperity. In speeches before Chase Manhattan International Financial Forums in Western Europe and Canada, but the most enthusiastic and most crucial response came in the spring when Rockefeller and Brzezinski presented the idea of a trilateral grouping at the Bilderberg meeting. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this up. Another secret society, another subset of the Illuminati. Michael Blumenthal, then head of Bendex Corporation, strongly backed the idea. May, June 1972. Rockefeller asked George Franklin to go to Western Europe and explore their both degree of interest and possible participants. As a result of interest found in Europe, David Rockefeller and George Franklin explore situation in Japan and find great interest there also. July 1972, a 17-person planning group for the Trilateral Commission met at Rockefeller's estate, Pochino Hills, in Tarrytown, New York. In addition to Rockefeller, Brzezinski, and Franklin, representatives from the U.S. included C. Fred Bernstein, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution; Robert Barry, professor of international affairs, Howard; McGeorge Bundy, president of the Ford Foundation. Ooh, Henry Ford would be pissed because he didn't take no money from them. They tried to run him out of business. He wouldn't take no money from them. Wow. Bayless Manning, president of the Council of Foreign Relations. Here go Illuminati number 2. Henry Owen, Director of Foreign Policy Programs at Brookings. Owen is cited as a key commission contextualizer and organizer by knowledgeable observers. Damn! Representatives from Western Europe include Karl Corstens, Christian Democratic leader in the Bundestag, West Germany. When Corstens was later elected president of West Germany, his background as an ex-Nazi was raised by the media. Wow. Guido Diplomia, president of La Recente and former member of the Commission of European Community. Francois Duchin, director of the Center of Contemporary European Studies, University of Sussex. Ren Fulch, member of Executive Committee, Party of the Republicans Independents. Max Cohenstein, director of European Community Institute for University Studies. From Japan, the members include Kai Mizowski, member of Diet and former Minister of Foreign Affairs. I'm going to skip these from Japan. Other early U.S. participants not in attendance at the meeting: William Scranton, governor of Pennsylvania and former ambassador to the United Nations. Wow. William Roth, former chief trade negotiator under President Johnson. Edwin Rochenshire, ambassador to Japan under Kennedy and Johnson. Fall 72. Respective delegations designated Gerald Smith, former director of Arms Control and Disarmament Agencies, as United States Chairman. Taski Wannabe, former president of Asian Development Bank, as Japanese Chairman. Max Konsman as European Chairman. Brzezinski was selected as Director of the Commission to serve July 1973. Partial funding was obtained from the Kettering Foundation to supplement the seed monies provided by David Rockefeller. You can't make this shit up. Oh, I might as well finish this all. January 1973, Smith, Brzezinski, Franklin, and Constantine held consultations with Watanabe and with Japanese planner groups in Tokyo. Approval of the highest political and financial circles obtained. Formal funding proposal is submitted to the Ford Foundation. I am fucked up now. To support a major share of the intellectual and research aspect of the commission's work and some of the administration and selling aspects. The commission was July 73. The commission was officially inaugurated after a series of regional meetings and extensive consultations. October 73. The founding session of the executive committee was held in Tokyo. It was attended by Brzezinski, Gerald Smith. Let me see if it's anybody new. David Rockefeller, of course. Patrick Haggerty. So we can... A planetary session with Japanese members was also held. Japanese Prime Minister Tanaka gave the principal address. The statement of purposes formulated by the executive committee was adopted. May 1975. First meeting of the full commission was held in Kyoto, Japan, attended by 113 members, following a consultation with Prime Minister Miki held on May 29th. Topics discussed: global redistribution of power and the trilateral community, key problems and prospects. There were 2.5 days of seminars in Japan organized by the Japanese Office of Commission, were held for North American and West European members. By the time the commission met in Kyoto, The regions were faced with shocks: the 1973 oil embargo, the OPEC price hikes, liberation of Vietnam, raising the third world call for new international economic order. Wow. The trilateral problem was how to construct, with little or no third world participation, an international system which would not be disrupted by third world initiatives. Wow. Now, this is what Beninsky said. While it is difficult to fault the Nixon administration's general priorities, one is struck by Washington's extremely limited interest in what is commonly described as the Third World. It may be true that the Kennedy administration occasionally overdid its wooing for third-rate statesmen. That's how they think about y'all. You were slaves. And fourth-rate countries. But the Nixon administration is far from establishing a balance that appears to be turning its back on most of mankind. In the United States, there was noticeably increased emphasis on trilateral ties as a cornerstone of American foreign policy, as advanced in the pronouncements of both Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, Illuminati himself, and President candidate Jimmy Carter, an active commission member. One Carter activity which pleased the commission was his distributing some 400 task force reports to Democratic candidates for office in 1974. Serving under President Ford, Kissinger, now a member of the Executive Committee of Commission, moved further away from unilateralism with which Nixon attempted to fashion and closer to the trilateral approach. Concerning the Third World, his earlier confrontationalist approach took on more of trilateral rhetoric of cooperation. Carter regularly expounded trilateralism in his foreign policy addresses during the campaign. Membership on this commission has provided me with a splendid learning opportunity, and many other members have helped me in my study of foreign affairs. I bet you they did. Early on, Beninsky became Carter's principal tutor. The commission's fourth annual report was in mid-77. This entry into government was most spectacular in the case of the United States. The interest in these appointments resulted in greatly increased exposure for the Commission's work, as reflected in particular by the wide press coverage received by the Commission. All right, let me see. This is the last page, so we'll be done. Wide press exposure presented some problems. Although the net result was a substantial boost in the public's interest in the commission and the dissemination of its work, some of this coverage tended to give largely distorted image of the commission's roles, sometimes raising the old conspiracy theories. And yeah, it may have raised them, but they were true. Because of this, greater public relations efforts were directed at the press and the public, promoting the image that the commission was an unofficial grouping of concerned citizens trying to suggest ways to address pressing world problems for the good of all humanity. That's a lie. At the 9/11 January session in Tokyo, you see that 9/11? Trilateralists discussed the task force report towards a renovated international system. The fourth annual report calls it a broad overview which was conceived as a capstone of the first 3 years of the Trilateral Commission's efforts. By 77, the Trilateral prescription for revitalizing the world economic and political order had been spelled out. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment.